Welcome back, true crime enthusiasts, to the True Crime Archives channel, where we journey into the darkest corners of human ambition, obsession, and horror. Today, we delve into a chilling tale that begins with a humble dream, but descends into a twisted nightmare of greed, betrayal, and a cold-blooded murder. This is the shocking story of Pichai Rajagopal, a man once celebrated as the Dosa King who built a restaurant empire adored by millions. But behind the steaming plates of idli and dosa, behind the polished shine of his Saravana Bhavan restaurants, lurked a sinister craving for power, a hunger that would destroy everything. Set against the backdrop of a newly independent India, this saga of obsession begins long before the murder, long before the terror, with a boy who dreamed of greatness. Stay with us, because you will want to hear every chilling detail of this rise and horrifying fall. The year was 1947. Just 10 days before India would break free from the shackles of British colonial rule, a boy was born into desperate poverty in the tiny village of Punayadi in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. His name was Pichai Rajagopal. The world he entered was one of deep hardship. His father was a simple onion farmer, trying to wring a living from the harsh soil, and his mother a housewife struggling to hold their modest home together. As Rajagopal grew up, he witnessed firsthand the relentless cycle of poverty that seemed to define his family's destiny. Every day he watched his father toil in the fields, growing onions to sell at the local market. The small plot of land, the meager profits, these things made one lesson painfully clear. If Rajagopal followed in his father's footsteps, he would never rise beyond the dirt floor of their house. From a very young age, Rajagopal burned with different ambitions. He refused to be just another farmer's son. He dreamed of something far greater, something that would lift him beyond the limits of the poor village that raised him. Determined to change his fate, Rajagopal made a choice that would alter the course of his life. He quit school before he could finish, and with only the most basic education, abandoned Punayadi for the vast city of Chennai, still known back then as Madras. The bustling streets of Madras were a world apart from the quiet onion fields of his home. Here, the air buzzed with opportunity, but also with brutal competition. Rajagopal arrived in the city as a teenager, obsessed with the idea of earning money, but painfully unprepared for the challenge ahead. He had no skills, no connections, no clear plan, and the city chewed him up. In those early years, he scraped by with the lowest paying work he could find. He cleaned restaurants, scrubbed dirty dishes, and brewed tea for customers, barely surviving. Yet these humiliating jobs planted a critical seed in his mind. Food was business. It was 1968 when Rajagopal finally saved enough money to break free of menial labor. With his tiny savings, he opened a small grocery store in the KK Nagar area of Chennai. Inspired by the Hindu deity he worshipped, he named the store Morgan and proudly displayed the slogan, "Quality, high quality." That same year, he married a woman named Vali Amal, beginning a new chapter in his life. But even as the grocery store survived its first few years, something in Rajagopal refused to settle. His restless mind constantly searched for ways to expand, to rise, to dominate. It was during these days that Rajagopal's unshakable belief in astrology, the ancient predictions of the stars, began to steer his decisions. For many in India, astrology is a respected cultural practice, but for Rajagopal, it became an obsession. One day, an astrologer visited his store and gave him a fateful reading. The astrologer told Rajagopal that the grocery store would never make him truly successful. Instead, he urged Rajagopal to enter a business connected to fire, something that would transform his destiny. This prediction would change the course of countless lives. Not long after the astrologer's visit, a random encounter sparked Rajagopal's imagination. A weary customer entered the Morgan store, complaining that he was starving, but would have to travel 5 kilometers just to find a place to eat. A light bulb went off in Rajagopal's mind. Why not open a restaurant right there in the KK Nagar neighborhood? A place where middle-class families could enjoy clean, affordable meals in a respectable environment. His father's store had been called Murugan Store, and another name for the same deity was Saravana. Rajagopal decided to name the restaurant Saravana Bhavan. On December 14, 1981, he sold every product left in his grocery shop shut its doors forever, and launched his first restaurant right on that same spot. He served authentic South Indian classics, fluffy idlis, crisp dosas, steaming hot vadas, tangy sambar, at prices that even a working family could afford. And he insisted on spotless kitchens, fresh vegetables, coconut oil for cooking, and premium spices that guaranteed unforgettable flavors. At first, the restaurant seemed doomed. India in the 1980s was still a culture where most families ate only home-cooked food. Eating out was reserved for special occasions, if at all. Rajagopal worried endlessly. Who would pay for idli and dosa they could just as easily make at home? He took a bold gamble. Despite a huge initial loss of 10,000 rupees, a sum that would be equivalent to about $115 today, but far more precious in 1981, Rajagopal refused to quit. Word began to spread. Saravana Bhavan was different. It was clean. It was honest. It was delicious. One family tried it, then another, and another. People who once scorned restaurants began to see Saravana Bhavan as their second home. Soon, there were lines out the door. People traveled across Chennai just to taste the dosa that had earned a reputation for being the best in the city. Rajagopal, driven by a relentless obsession, began opening more and more locations. Each new branch was built on the same principles: quality, affordability, and service. As Saravana Bhavan spread, it changed Chennai's dining culture forever. Rajagopal's growing restaurant empire earned him an almost mythical status among his staff. He paid decent salaries, offered health insurance for workers and their families, even guaranteed education for the children of his employees. In times of emergency, he stepped in with financial support. His staff began to call him Anaki, meaning big brother, a term of respect, gratitude, and loyalty. And then came the real crown, the Dosa King. Rajagopal had achieved a culinary legend status. In the late 1990s, he set his sights on the world stage. Inspired by McDonald's, he transformed Saravana Bhavan into a franchising juggernaut. In country after country, the Saravana Bhavan brand appeared. Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UK, the US, Canada, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand. By 2019, there were more than 125 Saravana Bhavan restaurants worldwide. The very first international branch opened in Dubai in 2000, and today, the Edison, New Jersey location is the busiest and largest outside South India. Rajagopal had won the world, but his obsession was not finished. Success, money, fame, these things were not enough. Rajagopal's astrological beliefs still burned in the background of his mind. Convinced by an astrologer that his marital destiny was incomplete, he decided to marry again. He had already been married twice and fathered 2 sons. Both marriages failed, but Rajagopal refused to let go of his belief that a third marriage would make him even more powerful and successful. At 51 years old, Rajagopal set his sights on a young woman named Jeevajyothi, the daughter of an assistant manager working at one of his restaurant branches. Jeevajyothi was just 22 years old, newly married to a math teacher named Prince Santakumar. She had come to Rajagopal in April 1998, asking for a loan to start a travel agency with her husband. Rajagopal was immediately obsessed. Her large eyes, fair skin, thick black hair. To him, she was perfect. He gave her the money she asked for, no questions asked. But the moment Jeevajyothi left, Rajagopal contacted his astrologer once again. He was told, "Marry this woman, and no force on earth will stop your greatness." That prophecy sealed Jeevajyothi's terrifying fate. From that day forward, Rajagopal could think of nothing but making Jeevajyothi his third wife. He began spying on her, calling her obsessively and sending expensive gifts to her modest home. Her husband Prince grew suspicious. Why would a billionaire restaurant magnate show such extravagant interest in a poor employee's daughter? Rajagopal's arrogance grew. He directly told Jeevajyothi that she should leave her husband and marry him. He promised her a luxurious life, limitless wealth, and anything she could dream of if she agreed to become his bride. When she refused, Rajagopal showed a much darker side. He threatened them both, leveraging not just his money but his political connections, local police, and even hired thugs. He delivered an ultimatum. Prince must convince Jiva Jyothi to marry him within 2 days, or else. Terrified, Jiva Jyothi and Prince decided they had no choice but to run. They packed what little they could carry, gathered cash, and tried to flee Chennai. But Rajagopal, with his network of informants and henchmen, tracked them down almost instantly. He arrived in their home with a group of loyal men and once again laid down the threat. If they ever tried to escape again, he would destroy their lives. In an act of brute intimidation, Rajagopal kidnapped Prince, forcing him into a car while Jiva Jyothi watched, paralyzed by fear. Desperate and alone, she ran to the police to report that her husband had been abducted. But when the officers learned that the accused was Rajagopal, the Dosa king, the powerful owner of Saravana Bhavan, they refused to file her complaint. Instead, they simply patted her on the shoulder and assured her everything would be fine. September 28, 2001. Prince Santhakumar was once again abducted. Taken from his home by a team of men hired by the powerful restaurateur P. Rajagopal, the man behind the global Saravana Bhavan empire. For 14 days, Prince was missing, swallowed by the dark underbelly of Tamil Nadu's criminal networks. Then, suddenly, on October 12th, Prince reappeared. Battered but alive, he returned home on his own and immediately marched to the police station. There, he gave a formal statement accusing P. Rajagopal of kidnapping him, even revealing the exact location where he had been held captive. But once again, the law turned a blind eye. The police refused to act, unwilling to confront one of India's most influential businessmen. It was a terrifying signal. Power had eclipsed justice. Just days later, on October 24th, the nightmare escalated. Prince and his wife Jiva Jyothi were on the move, likely trying to remain low profile, when they were abducted again, this time under far more sinister circumstances. Rajagopal's goons separated the couple, dragging Prince more than 320 miles away from Chennai to the remote forested slopes of Kodaikanal Hills, a mist-shrouded region known for its isolation. Meanwhile, Jiva Jyothi was placed under house arrest, where Rajagopal forced her to participate in a macabre ritual, a superstitious widow ceremony, meant to spiritually sever her from her husband and align her destiny with his. It was coercion wrapped in spiritual manipulation, rooted in delusion and dominance. Jiva Jyothi was not willing to be silenced. She escaped. She fled once again to the police, and once again, they refused to act. The system, infected by influence and fear, let her down. Officers told her, again, that her husband would soon return home, but this time, he would not. October 31st, 2001. A hiker walking through the Kodaikanal forest spotted something horrifying among the trees, a decomposing body. The smell of death clung to the air, and the sight sent him running for help. The local police arrived and recovered the body. It didn't take long to identify the victim, Prince Santhakumar. The young husband who had tried to escape a billionaire's obsession was now a murder victim, strangled and discarded in the woods. His body was sent back to Chennai, to his wife. This time, the police could not ignore the facts. Jiva Jyothi, shattered by grief but unrelenting, forced them to register a murder case. She named the man she held responsible in her written statement. Pichai Rajagopal, owner of Saravana Bhavan, kidnapped and murdered my husband, and with that, the dam broke. The local media caught wind of the murder and began reporting not only on the crime, but on Rajagopal's obsession with marrying Jiva Jyothi, his use of hired thugs, and the repeated failures of law enforcement. Now, under public scrutiny, the police were no longer able to bury the case, but even then, their actions were deliberately slow. Though a murder case was registered, they still refused to name Rajagopal as a suspect. That delay gave the Dosa king precious time to vanish, time to evade justice. But Jiva Jyothi had endured enough. Frustrated by the police's inaction, Jiva Jyothi took her plea to the courts, laying out every agonizing detail: the harassment, the surveillance, the abductions, the murder, and the police refusal to intervene. This time the judge took her word seriously. A formal order was issued: arrest P. Rajagopal. At last the system turned. Rajagopal's name was officially linked to the murder. Police reopened the investigation. The crime scene was re-examined. A piece of cloth used to strangle Prince was recovered. Solid physical evidence. An autopsy confirmed death by asphyxiation, caused by strangulation. Now, with the walls closing in, Rajagopal surrendered. On November 23, 2001, nearly a month after Prince's murder, Rajagopal and several of his associates turned themselves in at the magistrate court. After months of obstruction and silence, the truth was finally surfacing. Witnesses came forward. Testimonies painted a picture of premeditated murder. Rajagopal had sought to dismantle Jeevajyothi's marriage, using intimidation, bribery, violence, and finally, murder. He wanted her not through love, but through coercion and ritualistic manipulation. He was placed under judicial custody, but this was far from over. After spending around 18 months in jail, Rajagopal was granted bail on July 15, 2003, and he walked free. Outraged by Rajagopal's release, Jeevajyothi once again appealed to the court. She insisted that justice had not been served, that a powerful man had murdered her husband and was still walking free. The case advanced to the Sessions Court. In May 2004, after lengthy hearings, the court found Rajagopal and 8 co-conspirators guilty of culpable homicide, a lesser charge than murder. The sentence, 10 years imprisonment, and a fine of 5 million rupees, about $57,000 USD at today's exchange rate. The fine was awarded to Jeevajyothi, but this verdict was bittersweet. It confirmed guilt, but the punishment felt too light for the crime. So Jeevajyothi appealed again. The case moved to the Madras High Court, formerly Chennai High Court. In March 2009, the court re-evaluated the original verdict. The findings: the Sessions Court had erred. This was not mere culpable homicide. It was cold-blooded murder, committed to satisfy one man's obsession. The High Court overturned the previous verdict and sentenced P. Rajagopal to life imprisonment. Finally, the man who had tormented and terrorized Jeevajyothi, who had orchestrated the kidnapping and murder of her husband, was sentenced to die behind bars. But Rajagopal wasn't done fighting. Rajagopal, now aging and unwell, challenged the High Court's ruling in the Supreme Court of India. The legal process dragged on for years, and during that time, Rajagopal remained out on bail, citing chronic health issues. From 2001 to 2019, the man convicted of murder spent the vast majority of his time outside of prison. He became a symbol of judicial loopholes, of how wealth and power can manipulate the justice system. Meanwhile, the Saravana Bhavan empire flourished. His 2 sons ran the business, and customers kept coming. The restaurant's quality and profits remained steady, untouched by the scandal. In March 2019, the Supreme Court finally upheld the life sentence. No more appeals, no more games. The court gave Rajagopal 100 days to surrender and begin serving his sentence. During those 100 days, he lived comfortably at home. Then, on July 9, 2019, a surreal scene unfolded outside the Madras High Court. Rajagopal, now 72 years old, arrived in an ambulance, wearing an oxygen mask, surrounded by aides and bodyguards. Cameras captured the frail Dosa King being wheeled into the courthouse. He was taken into custody. He had evaded prison for nearly 18 years. Now, he was finally inside. But even prison couldn't hold him for long. Just 4 days after being incarcerated, on July 13, 2019, Rajagopal suffered a heart attack in his special medical cell. He was transferred to a private hospital, treated and stabilized. Yet on July 18th, his condition suddenly deteriorated, and by morning, Pichai Rajagopal was dead. After nearly 2 decades of dodging justice, the man who orchestrated a cold and calculated murder died only 9 days into his prison sentence. His final wish was that all Saravana Bhavan outlets remain open on the day of his death. Even in death, he prioritized his empire. Rajagopal never admitted guilt. He died a convicted murderer, yet never once expressed remorse for the life he destroyed. For Jeevajyothi, the death brought no closure. I fought for years to get him a life sentence, but he never served it. I can't accept that he died so easily. My wound remains a wound. Her life had been ripped apart, but she rebuilt it. Jeevajyothi eventually moved to a new city and opened a tailoring shop. She began designing bridal dresses, using her skills to piece together a new existence from the tattered remnants of her past. The Prince Santhakumar murder case isn't just about crime. It's about abuse of power, institutional failure, and one woman's relentless pursuit of justice in the face of a corrupt and indifferent system. Rajagopal rose to global fame as a symbol of entrepreneurial success. But behind that public image lay a man consumed by superstition, lust, and the belief that his will was law. He built a global empire of dosa and idli, and destroyed a man's life in the process. If this story shocked you, disturbed you, or made you reflect on how power can corrupt justice, hit that subscribe button to stay informed. What do you think? Did Rajagopal truly face justice, or did he escape it until the very end? Let us know in the comments below.